So I was always the tallest girl in every classroom I found myself throughout my secondary, high school days. And sometimes my classmates who are guys used to make fun of me and say, oh my God, this girl, you're so tall. No one is going to marry you because you're going to be taller than every guy. And that took a serious toll on my self-confidence. So I thought I was very ugly. So when I got into the university, I got scouted by this photographer. I'm very grateful for this day. And so when he saw me on campus, he was like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. I was like, that's not true. Don't say that. You're so beautiful and you got an amazing height. And he said, this is my card. I would like you to come to my studio and I would love to train you on how to walk on the runway. Up onto this point in my life, I shied away from wearing shoes that had heels because I thought, I'm so tall. So I'm trying to make myself look shorter, not taller. So I wouldn't even wear any shoe that had an inch of a heel. So when I went into his studio that weekend, he immediately took me to the runway and started teaching me how to walk, how to talk, how to present myself on a very large stage. And that began to grow my confidence to the point where he eventually enrolled me into the beauty pageant. That experience changed who I am. And out of that experience, I came to understand that a woman is nothing without her confidence. Because prior to that, I felt like the ugliest woman in the world. After that experience, I felt like I was the most beautiful woman in the world, not because I necessarily won a pageant, but because I had regained my confidence back. And so the way I carried myself, the way I spoke, the way I presented myself to people, everything changed when I regained my confidence. And to this day, you will never see a Nadine without high heels.
Welcome. This is Uncommon Sense, a CPA podcast presented by the Heshe CPA Knowledge Center. The center is an initiative of the CPA Education Foundation, the charitable arm of the chartered professional accountant profession in Alberta. For the record, this CPA podcast isn't about bean counting. Our episodes feature conversations with Alberta CPAs sharing their insights on a wide range of timely topics.
Hello, I'm Erin Schwartz, Director of the CPA Education Foundation. February is Black History Month, and to mark the month, this episode of Uncommon Sense features a Black CPA with a remarkable story to tell. Our guest is Nadine Niba, a Calgary-based CPA. Nadine was born and raised in Cameroon in West Africa and moved to Canada in 2014. She currently serves as Senior Manager, Risk Advisory at KPMG. In this role, she spearheads initiatives in IT audits and leads technology audits. Under her leadership, her team is committed to protecting organizational integrity and fostering an environment where financial reporting systems are both secure and compliant. Prior to joining KPMG Canada, she worked at Ernst & Young for 6 years as an enterprise risk management consultant and at PwC for 3 years as a technology assurance manager. As a Black woman, Nadine's journey from new immigrant to CPA and fast-rising professional is a story of determination and of overcoming obstacles with courage and faith. Nadine has joined to tell us this story and to talk about how she is paying it forward by supporting immigrant women and women of color as they seek to succeed in their own careers, no matter their height or background. Thank you for being here, Nadine.
Thank you so much, Erin. I like how you said no matter their height or background.
So, Nadine, it's been just over 10 years since you made the decision to move from Cameroon to Canada, and specifically Calgary. What led you to making such a life-changing decision?
I think Canada chose me. I didn't really choose Canada. And my story is such an interesting one, which I would love to share. And I'll go into the detail of that, how I found myself in Calgary and Canada. So back in 2011, I was still in Cameroon. I had graduated best accounting student, ordinary level, advanced level, graduated with honors from the university. And I wanted to travel to the United States, initially, not Canada, the United States to pursue a master's in accounting. And that was unsuccessful. I tried about 3 times. It didn't work out as I expected it to work out. And I got to a point where I was almost getting into depression. Like, when you really want something and it's just not working out for you. And every time they kept telling me, we don't think your family can sponsor you to study in the United States. Just for a little context, I came from a very middle-class family back in Cameroon. So I accepted my fate. So for me, it was, okay, this is not going to work out for me. I see all of my classmates going to study in all of these like top world countries. It looks like I'll have to make the best of what life has to offer me in Cameroon. So I threw myself into my volunteering activities. I had just emerged first runner-up Miss West Africa Cameroon in 2011. And so at that time, I decided to completely throw myself into volunteering, as that was the major cause that I used in contesting for this pageant. So I focused on helping women that had been forced into early marriages because of economic situations. They couldn't go to school. So getting married was just a means where you could help your family or put food on the table. And so what I did was I went through the suburbs, went through the villages, identified women that found themselves in such situations but really desired economic empowerment and wanted to become literate, like actually go to school. So I served as a liaison between this set of women and not-for-profit organizations in the United States and the United Kingdom, where they actually stepped in and sponsored these women through school. So in the process of doing that, it caught the attention of St. Francis Xavier University in Canada, that's in Antigonish, and I got 100% scholarship to come to Canada to study community development leadership for women leaders from developing countries. So I was 23 at the time when I came in for that program, and I found myself in a classroom with ministers, female ministers, wives of presidents of African countries that have come to actually get taught how to lead in their countries. And a lot of times, I know like some of these government officials and dignitaries looked at me and they were like, what's this 23-year-old girl doing here? I was just the one playing around, but I actually enjoyed the program. So once that program was done, I said, oh my God, I'm in Canada. I've always wanted to study accounting, like pursue my accounting studies further, like go get a master's, become a chartered accountant. There must be a university in Canada that's going to accept me to get this done. So that was when I applied to SAIT. I was in Antigonish at the time. I applied to SAIT and then moved to Calgary to take a second bachelor's in business administration in SAIT. You would imagine when I came for this leadership program, it was 100% sponsored, because, of course, my family could not afford sending me to study in a country like Canada with the tuition fee and the exchange rate. No, it felt like something that wasn't in the cards for me. So when I got that admission to study in SAIT, I had just $100 in my pocket. And this was an international student program with a tuition fee to the tune of over $35,000. And I had to live somewhere. I had to have a house, I had to pay rent, I had to feed. And for a 23-year-old, having to go through that for 2 years, doing 3 jobs in the summer just to be able to raise my tuition. I used to work overnight from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. at Walmart stocking shelves. After that, I'll go to class from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Then after class, I'm going to go do call center at SAIT. My life was a walking round the clock kind of life. That's during the semester. Now, when it's in the holiday, when it's summer, where I'm allowed to work the full 40 hours a week, I'll do 3 different jobs. I barely got sleep to raise the tuition, to be able to pay my rent. There were so many times in those 2 years that I got an eviction notice out of my apartment, like, you've missed your rental payment for this time. And so, and then I'll go, because I lived in the subsidized housing in Canada, and I'll go to the office and I'm like, please just give me time, I'm going to get this rent paid. I just kept pushing through because I knew that God brought me here for a reason. And if he brought me here at that time, under the circumstances which I came at that young age, there was somewhere he was taking me. And so this was the thing that in my heart kept me going despite the hardship and the tough time I was going through in that moment until I eventually graduated. But there's a lot of things that happened in between me finally graduating from SAIT and being where I am now, which I think that I'm going to speak more about as we go down through the podcast. But let's leave that at this point for now.
Amazing. Wow. Thank you for sharing. I'm exhausted just thinking about that school and working schedule. But I think really goes to show the motivation and the passion and kind of how it works within you. Like you said, when you were back home and you wanted it so bad and it wasn't working out, like how much that impacted your mental well-being. And then on the flip side, then making it, being here and working towards that, being at SAIT, obviously, again, just working really hard within you, and you kind of did what you had to do to make it happen.
Yeah. There was no giving up.
No giving up. Absolutely. I'm curious, the program that you did at Antigonish, is that something, do you still draw on any of those kind of skills that you learned there? Is that still a part of your day-to-day here, whether it be in work or in mentorship?
Yes, it's still a part of everything I do because we learned a lot of soft skills around leadership, around conflict resolution, around understanding frames of reference for different people. You can't use a one-size-fits-all when you're dealing with vulnerable women and women that find themselves in positions of disadvantage and they really want to do better. Everyone comes with a unique situation and a unique set of circumstances. So it's very important to understand people where they're at and then meet them at the point of their need. So I think that even though my journey has been a difficult one, a lot of it has been a blessing in disguise because everything that I've learned along the process and along the way, including being able to be in the same classroom with such caliber of people at that very young age, learning about government policy, conflict resolution, leadership, how to approach people in vulnerable situations, has inevitably equipped me with the skills that I use today when I deal with a lot of immigrant women like myself. And it's not just that. The reason why I also am passionate about this course is because I myself has also lived through a very tough life as an immigrant woman. So, Erin, there was a point in time where, like for the first 6 months when I got the house from, I can't remember the name, subsidized housing of Calgary, that was 8 years ago. I slept on the floor because I couldn't even afford a bed. And then it was the height of winter. I didn't even have a winter jacket. I went days without food. And I remember I was in the C train one day and that I had walked crazy hours and I got into the train to go back home and I fell asleep on the C train. And so the C train just kept taking me from one end of the town to the other, Tuscany to Saddletown back to Tuscany because I was fast asleep. When I woke up and I realized how much I had slept off in the train because this girl was truly exhausted. And then I had missed the shift that day. And I was really counting on that shift to make up what I was going to get as payment that day to pay my rent. I just sat in the train and I started crying. I burst into tears. And Canada is such an amazing country because everybody is so nice. Everybody is willing to help. And a lady saw me in the train and she said, "Young lady, why are you crying?" I said, "I want to go back to my country. It's so tough. Like, I can't take it anymore." And she said, "There's a place called Women in Need Society in Calgary." And then she gave me their address. She said, "Go to them." So I went to them and they gave me winter jackets. They gave me food items. They gave me a ticket to go get a bed from Sleep Country. The bed that Women in Need Society gave me, I used it from 2014 up until 2023. I only replaced that bed in 2023 because it was such an amazing bed. That so much so that even when I had money, I saw no reason to replace it. I said that to say, it's an experience that I've lived myself. So it's not just what I learned, it's what I learned coupled with my own lived experiences that draws out so much compassion and purpose from within me to be very steadfast in the cause of helping immigrant women, not just Black women, different people, when they make the decision to move into a new country, 90% of the time, they don't have the full picture of what awaits them at the other end. When I was leaving, I thought I was coming for the American dream. I didn't know that I was going to go through all of what I went through to eventually live that American dream. And that is the story of so many other people who leave, and all they have heard is how fancy a country is. But when they get in, they're faced with the reality of, I have to go through school, I have to do certificate translation, I have to have somebody to give me the first years before some employers will say, oh, you need Canadian experience. Where do I start from with getting Canadian experience? But you have kids to feed, you have bills to pay. Life becomes tough. So a lot of times, so many people just need somebody to listen to their situation and give them that one yes, which that is going to change their story for good. So, yeah, to answer your question, it's a combination of everything that I learned and my own lived experiences.
Absolutely. And like you said, that gave you the skills that you needed and the empathy and the compassion to help those women.
Yeah.
But it also, I think, really helps when you're a role model and a leader that people can see themselves in someone, right? So you having that lived experience, I think really just elevates your ability to make a difference in that way as well.
Thank you.
Can you talk more about your journey into a leadership role at a Big Four accounting firm?
Whew. So I'm going to tell you what I share with a lot of people, especially immigrants, both men and women, who reach out to me all the time to say, hey, can you share more about your career journey with me? I want to learn how I can get to where you are. Nothing about my journey was planned. And I often, every time, like when I moved to KPMG, they had this amazing program where they brought Black high school students to come do an internship. And for a couple of weeks, all they had to do was book so many coffee meetings with the professionals within the firm to learn about what they do and how they got to where they are. And every time I had all the coffee meetings that I had with these students, there was a common theme of question that they always asked me. And the question was, what can I do to get to where you are, Nadine? And I told them, nothing of this was planned. The only thing you can do is do your best in the present. When you do your best in the present, the future takes care of itself. Now, let's come back to my personal journey. So I found myself in a situation where I had called my parents back home and told them, this is November 2015. I said, if I don't get a job by November 2015, I've gone through so much, from not even having food to eat in a day. You have to find a way, get the money somehow, buy me an air ticket, and this will be goodbye to Canada. I'm coming back home. Because I've tried. At least I came, I saw, I conquered. I couldn't keep pushing. And it so happened that what I always did was, every day before I left school, I'll go to the library and apply for a couple of jobs before I get home. So this day, normal routine, I went to the library, I applied, I got home, and I got a call. And it was for an interview at CNRL, Canadian Natural Resources Limited, for an internship, co-op student. And so the following morning, I went into the interview, and 30 minutes after the interview, I was offered the job. So when I started working at CNRL on co-op, this is in 2015, where Calgary faced a severe drop in oil prices. All companies were laying off. There were so many people without jobs. Calgary was going into recession. And so I was putting in my best on this job because my life depended on it. This felt like heaven to me, just to be able to get that opportunity. That meant that I was no longer going to do 3 jobs. That meant that I now had money to pay my tuition and pay my rent. That meant that I was not going to get eviction notice. It didn't matter if the salary that I was getting paid was less than $25,000. This was heaven. So as you expect, for somebody to get that kind of opportunity, I threw my all into it. And one day, my direct manager, she took me out to coffee and she said, "Hey, Nadine, you work really hard. I'm curious to know, where do you want to go with your life, career-wise?" And I said, "I'd like to become a CPA. I've studied accounting all my life. I was in business school back in Cameroon from the age of 9. Cameroon has that option to send your child to get specialized from that early age. So my dad sent me to business school from the age of 9. So becoming a CPA was like this crown jewel. If I didn't become a CPA, it was almost like I had failed in life. So I told her, I want to become a CPA. I want to work for a Big Four. And she said, "Okay, no worries. Oil prices are really down now. The company is on hiring freeze. I'll place a call to EY and see who I can speak to there." At this point in time, I was 4 months into an 8-month internship when we had this conversation. And so then she places a call, and EY was very much in need of someone when she placed that call. And so they said that, "Yeah, we have an opening and we need somebody now. So we can't wait 4 months to the end of our internship. She will have to come now." So they called me for the interview and then they offered me the job and they said, "Hey, you have to start on Monday." So I came to her and I said, "Yes, I went for the interview, but there's a problem." And she said, "What's the problem?" "They want me and they want me now." And she said, "Oh, no, that's fine. It's okay. I know you were supposed to stay for 8 months. This is month 4. You can resign and go. This is about the bigger picture for you." That was the very first yes I got career-wise when I came to Canada. Till date, I'm still in touch with this manager. I meet with her every year just to talk about how things are going where I am. And because the response she gave me in that instance was profound. And for her to say, "No, it's okay, you can go." And this was a tax rule at the time. And this was the height of the tax season, corporate tax. They really needed me. But she said, "They don't have a permanent role for me. And remember, I placed this call, so go." So she let me go to start at Ernst & Young. That was profound. And so when I started at EY, EY was an amazing firm. They sponsored me through the CPA program. I just had an amazing experience at EY. All the managers, the senior managers, the partners I worked with, they were always so willing to invest in you, to teach you, to coach you. I'm still very much indebted to that firm. And so from my time at EY and everything I learned, the foundation of where I am was built at Ernst & Young. Everything I learned opened doors for me for other opportunities to come. EY built the foundation of who I am professionally. I learned everything in my field of expertise, from the benevolence of the people who were outrightly willing to pour into me every day, as though I was a daughter to any of them. Everyone I worked with was constantly pouring into me, teaching me as though I was in a classroom. My foundation was really formed. And then at PwC, I learned how to be a manager. PwC is an environment where they truly focus on building the leader out of you. As a manager in PwC, you have a team, and the partners actually step back and give you the opportunity to develop your own identity as a leader and lead your team. Of course, still producing quality work, but my experience at PwC really formed who I am as a leader in a professional space, and I'm truly grateful for that. And then, I'm now at KPMG as a senior manager. It's 8 months in, and I'm still observing what KPMG is going to build out of me as a leader. But I have some amazing partners and directors and executive directors in KPMG that are some of the best in the industry technically. So I believe that one thing that I'm going to take out of KPMG is really sharpening my technical skills, like taking it to the next level in the field where I am in. And in all of that, when I look back through my trajectory, I think that I've just been very lucky and blessed to work with amazing people, to work with wonderful people, and every experience has been something that built a certain facet of me as a professional. In EY, my foundation was built. In PwC, my leadership skills were built. In KPMG, I'm sharpening my technical skills. And I believe that at the end of the day, all of this is going to sum up to make me an amazing, well-rounded professional who is going to eventually step into a bigger leadership role in the space where I'm practicing. So every time I speak to immigrants, Black folks, when they reach out to me on LinkedIn, I receive so many coffee requests on LinkedIn every day, to the point where now I have a Calendly link on my profile to be able to regulate it so that I don't spend all my day having coffee meetings and not actually working. And the number one question always is, what can I do to get to where you are? And I said, just do your best in the present. The future will take care of itself.
Wow, that's really impactful. I love seeing how each experience and each different employer kind of brought you something different. That's really interesting. I think you give a lot of credit to the folks, like you say, pouring everything into you. And, Nadine, I don't know you. I've just met you, but I can say with pretty good certainty, I think you're probably not giving yourself enough credit there, because I think yes, they poured a lot into you, but I think that's because of what they saw in you and your work ethic and everything that you brought to their businesses. This has been a wonderful discussion, hearing a little bit about your journey to Canada and to your leadership role. We have so much more to talk about, though, so we are going to split this up into 2 episodes. We're going to wrap up our discussion today, and we'll be back next week to hear a little bit more about the mentorship that you do with other newcomers to Canada and Black women and women within the profession. But thank you so much for joining us today, Nadine, and we'll touch base again next week.
The Uncommon Sense podcast is presented by the CPA Education Foundation and funded by the Heshi CPA Knowledge Center. The Knowledge Center was created through a generous donation to the CPA Education Foundation by the late Brian Heshi. Brian was a distinguished Albertan, business leader, CPA, educator, and community builder. His generosity and commitment to education underpinned his good works across Alberta throughout his lifetime. We would like to acknowledge that the CPA Education Foundation offices are situated on the traditional Treaty 6 and Treaty 7 territories and Métis Nation homeland. The Foundation acknowledges that we reside on traditional and ancestral territories of many Indigenous, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Their histories and culture influence our community to this day. The CPA Education Foundation is committed to helping build a province where Indigenous people and their voices and experiences are heard, valued, respected, and celebrated. Technical and recording services for this podcast provided by Wolf Willow Studios in Edmonton. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about us. If you have any comments on the podcast, write to us at cpaef@cpaalberta.ca. To learn more about the CPA Education Foundation and the Heshi CPA Knowledge Center, visit cpaalberta.ca/foundation. Thanks for listening.